Okay, so today we're going deep on EON Reality's EON Exploratory Simulator.
Yeah, the technical architecture documentation for it.
Right, they just released that.
Yeah, it is really fascinating.
So this platform, it's all about AI-assisted VR and AR for learning.
Yeah, knowledge transfer, it's really aimed at industry and education and a big focus on narrative, story-driven learning.
hmm
And the documentation is impressive. Like they're really opening up and showing how things work.
It is, it's pretty detailed. It's almost like they're giving us a blueprint for building these immersive learning experiences.
Right, exactly.
So let's dive in. Maybe we could start with some of the key technical components.
Okay, sure. Well, one of the first things that jumps out at me is this annotation prioritization framework.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, when you're in a VR environment, there's potentially a ton of stuff to look at.
Right, could be overwhelming.
Exactly. So this framework, it's like it helps select the most important visual elements for the learner to focus on.
Okay, so it's prioritizing what you should be paying attention to.
Yeah, like in a 3D model or a 360-degree environment, instead of just seeing everything at once, it highlights what's crucial for understanding at that moment.
That's smart because, if you just throw everything at someone in VR, it could be hard to know where to look.
Right. It's like information overload.
Exactly.
So this helps with that.
Now, what about the avatar action system I saw that mentioned?
Oh, yeah, that's another really cool component.
Okay, tell me about that.
So, think about it this way. You've got this virtual guide, right? And instead of just telling you what to do, they actually demonstrate actions.
Okay.
They can point to things to orient themselves in a certain way, within the virtual space.
Oh, I see. So they're like giving you visual cues.
Yeah, and it's synchronized, so it feels very natural, and it makes the learning path much more intuitive.
It's like having someone right there with you, guiding you through the experience.
Exactly, and it makes the whole environment feel more dynamic and engaging.
Right, because it's not just static anymore. Things are moving and reacting. Now, what about sound? How does that play into all of this?
Okay, well, they have what they call this tri-layer audio integration architecture.
A mouthful.
Yeah, but it basically means they've got 3 layers of audio working together.
Oh, okay.
So you have speech synthesis for narration, right? So you can have clear explanations. Then you've got ambient audio to really immerse you in the environment, like background sounds and stuff.
Right, like if you're in a factory setting, you might hear machinery in the background.
Exactly. And then the third layer is interaction sound effects. So when you do something in the simulation, you get audio feedback.
Oh, that's cool. So it's really responding to what you're doing.
Yeah, and it helps with understanding, too,
Yeah.
because you can hear the consequences of your actions.
Makes sense. So it's not just visual, it's auditory as well.
It's a multi-sensory experience.
Now, speaking of the experience itself, the documentation mentions something called narrative progression mechanics. What is that all about?
Yes, that's the heart of how the learning unfolds. It's like a state machine architecture. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Not really.
Okay, well, basically, it's like a sophisticated flow chart, so the narrative can branch in different directions depending on your actions.
So it's not just a linear path.
No, it can adapt.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the environment can change too, like based on your progress.
Wow.
And it even acknowledges when you hit certain milestones, so you get that sense of accomplishment.
It's like the system is really paying attention to what you're doing.
Yeah, it's very dynamic and responsive.
Now, with all of this content and these branching narratives, I imagine it must be pretty complex to create these learning modules.
Well, that's where the JSON-based mission definition comes in.
Okay, that sounds technical.
It is a little bit, but basically it means they use these standardized templates to define the structure of each module.
Okay.
And they use JSON, which is a way to represent data, you know? But the point is, it streamlines the content creation process.
I see. So it makes it more manageable.
Yeah, and it's also easier to modify and scale the content because it's all based on this common structure.
That's a good idea. Because I imagine if everyone was just doing their own thing, it would be a nightmare to manage.
Right. It would be chaos.
Now, we've talked a lot about the software side of things, but what about the hardware? VR and AR can be pretty demanding,
Yeah, well, they've thought of that too. They've got a whole section on optimization techniques.
Okay.
So they do things like LOD management, which stands for level of detail.
Okay.
So basically, the system adjusts the complexity of 3D models based on how far away they are.
So if something's really far away, you don't need to render all the tiny details.
Exactly. It saves processing power.
Smart.
And then they also use asset streaming, which means they only load the assets you need when you need them.
So that's not loading everything at once.
Right. And they've got techniques to minimize draw calls and reduce shader complexity.
So they're really trying to optimize for performance.
Yeah, they want to make sure it runs smoothly, even on devices that aren't super high-end.
I see, because not everyone has access to the latest and greatest VR gear.
Right.
Now let's talk about implementation. If a company or a school wants to use this system, what do they need to know?
Well, the documentation provides very clear hardware and software requirements.
Okay, so they know what they need to get started.
Exactly. And they also outline a 7-phase content creation workflow.
7 phases. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty detailed, but it takes you from defining your learning objectives all the way to deploying the module.
So it's a step-by-step guide.
Yeah, it's very comprehensive.
Now what about integration with existing systems like learning management systems?
Oh, yeah, they've got that covered too.
Okay, good, because most organizations are already using some kind of LMS.
Right, so they provide guidance on LMS integration protocols like SCORM and XAPI.
I've heard of those.
Yeah, they're standards for how learning content communicates with an LMS.
So you can track learner progress and all that.
Exactly, and you can do things like grade passback, so the grades from the simulator can go right into the LMS.
That's important for teachers.
Yeah, it makes it all seamless.
And I imagine they have some kind of testing process to make sure this stuff actually works.
Yeah, they've got a 3-phase testing methodology.
Okay, tell me about that.
So the first phase is technical validation, just making sure the software works as expected.
Right, make sure there are no bugs.
Yeah. And then the second phase is educational effectiveness. So they actually test to see if people are learning what they're supposed to learn.
Oh, that's crucial.
Yeah. And then the third phase is user experience, making sure it's easy to use and engaging.
So they're really trying to cover all the bases.
Yeah, it shows they're committed to quality.
Now, for those who want to get really hands-on with content creation, I understand there are some additional resources included.
Oh, yeah, they've got a bunch of appendices with helpful stuff.
Like what?
Well, they've got JSON structure templates to help you get started with building your modules.
Okay.
And they have prompt crafting guidelines, which is really interesting because it's all about how to create engaging scenarios for the learners.
So you can make it more interactive and interesting.
Yeah. And they even have an avatar movement and sound reference guide so you can see how to use those features effectively.
Wow.
And there's a mission development worksheet to help you plan out your content.
That's a lot of resources.
It is. They've really thought of everything.
So overall, this deep dive into the EON Exploratory Simulator has been really eye-opening.
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive system.
It's clear that they've put a lot of thought into not just creating immersive learning experiences, but also making them effective and scalable.
Yeah, the level of detail in the documentation is really something. It's like they're not just showing you the finished product, they're showing you how it's made.
Right, and that's empowering because it means other people can learn from their approach.
Exactly.
So for anyone who's interested in learning more, I highly recommend checking out the full technical architecture documentation.
Yep.
It's available on the EON Reality website.
Yeah, and they also have a podcast and an EON XR spoken blog, which are great resources.
Definitely worth checking out.
This whole thing, it really makes you think about the future of learning.
Yeah, how so?
Well, now that we have this kind of insight into how these platforms are built, it's like the possibilities are endless for educators and trainers.
I agree. It's like a whole new world of immersive learning is opening up.
And it's not just about the technology, it's about how we use it to create truly transformative experiences for learners.
Absolutely well said.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about what the future holds.
I agree. I can't wait to see what they come up with next.
Me too.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.